Doing an unboxing is a real treat for me because most of the things I get are usually broken, with no box and missing accessories. Looks like good cardboard. This is a Sony InfoCarry, a very rare Japanese-only handheld device. It has to be paired with a computer using the recommended 133 MHz Pentium. I think I have just the thing. Let's get into it and see what we've got here. And there it is, inside its vinyl pouch, branded on the outside with Sony and Vaio. There's also a wrist strap. I don't think this is brand new. Straps like this are usually supplied in the box unattached. Most likely the wrist strap has been attached by the previous owner. Condition looks excellent though. There's a power on-off on the side and a jog dial. The other side just has a USB port. Looking in the rest of the box, and there's a USB cable with an odd connector at one end that will come in handy. Under this remaining flap of cardboard are some papers. This looks like an instruction guide printed in 1999, which, from the very few mentions I've seen of this thing online, confirms the release date of December 1999. The instructions are all in Japanese. This thing was never meant to go outside of Japan, so there's simply no need for any other languages. The next page looks like it could be a warranty card. There's an arrow pointing to where the serial number would be. The other side shows a URL and some sort of unique code. I wonder if this was for some sort of online registration, or was there an online service available? Next is a booklet with 3 steps in Japanese, and then the word service. Inside is a form to fill out in duplicate using carbon copy paper. How quaint. The 4th item is another form to fill out with a section called Vaio Gear and 4 Vaio accessories: music clip, InfoCarry, camera and jog controller. Interesting. The final item in the box is a CD-ROM disc, hopefully with all the supporting software. This should come in very handy. Now let's have a look at the device itself. Flipping open the cover and we see a huge display. It looks like a reflective grayscale LCD. On the top are 3 more buttons: back, menu and light. I'll get it out of its case so we can have a closer look. There is Vaio branding on here in purple. I'm also going to remove the wrist strap while I'm examining this on the desk. There's no rechargeable battery here. This just uses a single AAA battery. Okay, there it goes, powering up. I love how mysterious this feels. There's so little information about this thing online and basically nothing in English. I love finding rare and unusual and even weird Japanese devices like this. On YouTube, I could only find 2 videos that show this device. One is a Japanese video from over 15 years ago. The other is a more recent video featured on this great channel that shows a lot of really interesting devices, including many Sony oddities.
Потом ко мне приехало вот такое вот устройство. Это...
This video will be only the 3rd on YouTube, so I want to do a decent job of showing this off. Okay, the backlight seems to work, so I'm going to turn the lights down and turn up the exposure on my camera. And it's a dim but beautiful electroluminescence. Let's have a look at how this thing might operate with its menus and its system. Wow, that screen is really nice. It's 240 by 320 pixels, extremely high resolution for a handheld at the time. There seems to be a lot of things already on here, but it seems to be mostly promotional material from Sony. These emails, for example, don't look personal. I will be checking these before including them in the video. There's some maps on here. Very nice. Though they are just images of maps and not anything like a mapping app. The screen is also not displaying anything grayscale. It's only black and white. Sony fun, that sounds good. Not really sure what this document is about though. Okay, here are some images that look like old photos of people. I think these documents are showing me and talking about Sony's history, and that last image is a photo of a rice cooker. I recognise this as the very first product that Sony ever made. There's an image of the InfoCarry itself being displayed on itself in a recursive loop that can damage time itself if not careful. There's some very long documents on here. The top right-hand corner shows the line count. This one is over 1,500 lines long, and this other one is almost 5,000 lines. I'm curious what these are. The menu button seems to bring up some sort of bookmark function. This section at the bottom seems to be a settings menu with lots of different options that I'm going to have to find out about. And this option here shows the memory space. This thing has 2 megabytes of total storage. This device is a content viewer. It can handle text and images, so I think the label network player is a bit over the top. Okay, I really want to load my own information on here. The computer I'm going to use is, of course, my Japanese 505 VAIO. Of course, I'm going to use the Japanese Windows 95 that I have on here, and this laptop does have a required USB port. And I find that interesting because Windows 95 came out before USB and has no USB support built in. This is something I neglected to mention in my previous video about this laptop. So I find it really interesting that the original Japanese 505 was being sold without any way to use the USB, despite having a port. However, Microsoft did release a USB add-on component for the second version of Windows 95. From what I understand, it does make USB usable on Windows 95, but perhaps not fully supported. So I'm installing it and I'm going to give it a go. Okay, I've got USB support in the device manager and it does seem to work, but trying the InfoCarry software is a minefield of Japanese error messages. I can't seem to get the InfoCarry driver to install. I can't even get the application itself to run. I've tried many options, but I've concluded it's just not compatible with Windows 95. In fairness, Sony does specifically say that you need Windows 98 to use this software. So I'm reluctantly switching over to the Windows 98 install that I have on here, which is in English. Okay, trying again. I can get the driver to install now. That looks like it's working. The application itself does install, but this version of Windows doesn't know what to do with all the Japanese characters. I'm just getting underlined characters everywhere. Not a great result. I'm not sure what any of these menus do. I tried to get something working with the InfoCarry, but I really couldn't get very far. I had a look around online to see what else I could find, and it looks like someone has uploaded a later version of the InfoCarry software to the Internet Archive. This is version 1.2, and of course, it's all still in Japanese, and I can't really see what I'm doing, but it does seem like the InfoCarry is connecting to this software. And after messing around for a bit, I was eventually able to upload a file to the InfoCarry. So at least I know that it works, which is a relief. But not being able to see the menus correctly, this deserves something better, to bring justice to the whole Japanese experience. It's just not satisfying to use like this. So I've decided to bite the bullet and install the Japanese version of Windows 98 onto the spare partition. This is left over from the previous video when I failed to install Windows NT. I've never seen the regular Windows installation process in Japanese before. It's quite otherworldly. Fortunately, I know many of the prompts on here already and what they probably mean. I'm going to just run through all of this without translating and assume that it's going to work. I'll take this opportunity to update a few things about this laptop from the previous video. For example, I did get the infrared window back in. Also, in that video I made the mistake of saying that Windows was running in 16 million colours. But this was not correct. You only get 16 million colours in 640 by 480 screen resolution on the original 505. When running with 800 by 600 pixels, which is the native resolution of the LCD, you only get a maximum of 65,536 colours. Much less than full colour, but still enough to play video. There's also a hidden stylus in the side of the screen. But like the InfoCarry, this laptop does not have a touchscreen. The stylus is intended to be used on the pressure-based trackpad. The other aspect I didn't expand on in the previous video is the police story. I now realise that the making of that video was a closing of the arc from a long time ago, when police took my laptop and broke it. That video represented my original 505's redemption story. Thanks for all the comments asking about this. I did respond to some questions, but couldn't get to all of them. Unfortunately, the details of the police story are kind of lame. I had a run-in with the transit police, who thought I was copying or altering magnetic strip tickets. I think someone may have told them I was doing this. Of course, I wasn't doing anything like that. The tickets in question, however, were quite simple in the way they worked, and it was apparent to anyone who cared to look closely that they had no security on them. In fact, the system those tickets used was so poor that if you simply knew how they worked, you would find exploits. You could then easily do things, like find out how to reuse tickets many times over. But I wouldn't do something like that. Anyway, a couple of months later, they returned my laptop to me. It looked like they'd taken the screws out, but didn't realise that the hinge mechanism had plastic covers holding them down. So they must have forced open the magnesium casing to get to the hard drive, and did that with enough force to break the metal frame. Unfortunately, there wasn't much I could do about that. Police are lawfully allowed to use any force necessary to conduct a search. If I had challenged them, they would have argued they were not technicians, and the measures they used were necessary. One thing I distinctly remember, though, when getting my laptop back, is they complained to me, with obvious irritation, that I had way too many files on my computer. I like to think of them having to read through hundreds and hundreds of text files that I'd saved on my 505, and check through the dozens, if not hundreds, of MS-DOS utilities that I kept on the 2GB hard drive. These days, I have almost 3.5 million files just on my main computer. So I guess next time, they'll really have their work cut out for them if they ever try something like that again. I'm familiar enough with the Windows 98 installation process to just choose the defaults. I did have one small problem typing in my username. The keyboard was defaulting to Japanese character input, and I had to find the option to switch to English characters to get it to accept a username. Okay, there it is. Japanese Windows 98. My special Japanese laptop is getting even better. The driver install is also easy, even in Japanese. I'm installing the version 1.2 of the InfoCarry tools, simply because it seems like a better version. There are various tools for syncing different sorts of information, including addresses, calendars, emails, maps, and you can even do web clipping. I like the idea that you could load everything you needed for the day and so easily take this with you on the subway through Tokyo. This seems like exactly the sort of device I would have really wanted 25 years ago. If this had been more widely available and available in English, I think I would have picked one up. I want to see if I can find a niche use case for my InfoCarry today. I'm going to start by loading some text files onto this, starting mostly with books. I'm not really sure that I want to use this as an ebook reader for reading full-sized books, but I think it's a good place to start and find out how good this is. Another thing I want to try is loading some images onto here. The images have to be re-encoded using the supplied conversion software. The display being simple black and white with no grayscale means the conversion software has to do some dithering. And there's quite a number of different dithering patterns offered. Some do actually seem better than others. But I'll just be using the default Floyd-Steinberg dithering pattern. At 240 by 320, bitmap images come out at an economical 11 kilobytes each. With only 2 megabytes of space, I have to be selective with the files I choose to upload. Even so, the transmission time does seem to take a while, about 25 seconds. This is using USB 1.1, so I guess that's to be expected. Okay, I now have everything set up in a usable state. Quickly checking through the settings, and they seem quite decent. There's customization options for text size and spacing, display contrast, and backlight time. I like the way this is something I can carry with me that's not connected to any networks. It feels very personal. I'm not going to see any ads or get manipulated. This can only ever be what I want it to be. For me, this is a true sanctuary from modern tech, a real treasure to cherish and enjoy. This has got me thinking on other ways to escape the perils of modern tech. But before wrapping up this video, I have one more thing to do, and that's to take this apart and have a quick look inside. This looks really easy to do. There are 6 visible screws, 3 on each side, with the welcoming Sony arrows pointing to them, inviting me to take it apart. Nice crack on those screws. This thing has been sealed up tight for over 25 years. They look like metal screws. Okay, there it goes. Very nice. A neat mainboard with a good layout. There's 4 large chips. This one here is made by Epson. I would bet good money this is the LCD controller chip. This other chip here with the 2 rows of pins on the shorter sides. This is going to be the flash memory. The 3rd chip here is almost certainly going to be the CPU, or more likely a system on a chip with integrated RAM and maybe a few other functions. I do wonder if the embedded OS is in the flash chip or in the system chip. And finally this Oki chip, which I'm going to guess is running the USB interface. The USB connector is right nearby, which would make sense. While I'm here, I may as well take these internal screws out and have a look underneath this board. I can lift this board up, but there are these 2 solder points still connected to the board holding it in on this side. These run into the back of the display, and this looks like power for the backlight. There's a large coil right next to them, which is almost certainly used to generate the high-frequency AC voltage for the electroluminescent backlight. This was obviously designed to be an inexpensive item, but not cheap. It still has Sony quality written all over it. It's more like something that was designed to do one specific thing very well. It just displays information on a large black and white LCD and nothing else. Even the casing is simple but decent quality. After getting it back together and, something has gone haywire. Of course, my first thought is, what could I have broken? But opening it back up, and I can see I forgot to reclose the LCD ribbon cable connector. I often check things before doing a full reassembly and putting all the screws back in, but I guess in this case I didn't bother doing that because this is such a simple device. So this is one of the times when I didn't do a test, and it turns out there was actually a problem. Okay, we're back up and running, and all the memory is still intact. This is an aspect of the device that I really like. The Sony InfoCarry doesn't need to be kept powered up all the time to keep its memory contents intact. So with the InfoCarry having flash memory combined with the bigger screen and no built-in battery gives this a very unique use case. For example, this device can be stored almost indefinitely without a battery in it. Pop in a AAA battery anytime and it's instantly ready to go, with all its memory content still intact. I'm not looking to read emails on here or update the contents very often, if at all. In fact, I'm going to turn this into a static device, filled with timeless information that will still be relevant for 1,000 years, if the memory lasts that long. I want this to do things that modern tech simply can't ever do. I want this device to provide a calming experience, a thing that's relaxing and can even provide wisdom. a symbol of what we really want from our technology. Apart from this kind of use case and owning an intriguing piece of Sony history, I'm not sure I could recommend getting one of these today. This was quite a challenge to set up and use while still being quite limited. I've also been looking around for a while, and I'm starting to see similar kinds of devices, such as these small e-ink devices that are like modern equivalents of the InfoCarry. I like the idea of carrying a sanctuary from all the modern tech around us. This is a techno-talisman to ward off evil spirits, a true sanctuary in your pocket. Thank you to all these fine people whose names I have engraved into the memory of this Sony InfoCarry. I am grateful to everyone who helps support this channel. Please help keep this channel going with your donations and your comments, shares and likes. Your support means more to me than I can express. The only true voyage of discovery, the only fountain of eternal youth, would be not to visit strange lands, but to possess other eyes, to behold the universe through the eyes of another, of 100 others, to behold the 100 universes that each of them beholds.
静かな夜の星の下で